Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Superman Ryan here, and we are back with another movie review. Hey guys, Superman Ryan here, and we are back with another movie review. And today, what we're going to be reviewing is X-Men Apocalypse. And if any of you guys talk to me on social media, then you know I'm a very, very big comic book geek. If you've watched any of my other movie reviews, then again, you know I'm a very big comic book geek. And I do a movie night with my wife every Wednesday. We take a couple hours off, and we watch a movie together. And this week's movie was X-Men Apocalypse. Now, guys, I'm going to say this right now. There may be slight spoilers in this review. I'm not gonna give any big spoilers. I don't want to ruin the movie for you because it was such a great movie. But there will be slight spoilers, so if you don't want the slightest thing spoiled before you go and watch this movie, click off the video now. Now, if I am going to give any big spoilers, I will tell you. I'm getting ready to give you a big spoiler. Fast forward 1 or 2 minutes, and you'll miss it. But I'll give you ample warning if I'm going to spoil a big part of the movie. Okay? Now, one of the things that is difficult for me when it comes to watching these comic book movies is I am such a big comic book nerd. I know all the storylines, I know all the characters, I know the specific character storyline, and that plays in with this movie as well. This movie is not very canon. This movie, it does change the actual character storyline, and it even kind of changes some of the storylines from the past X-Men movies, which blows my fucking mind that they can't just stick to one story. I mean, how many times do we have to see Scott Summers for the very first time shoot fucking lasers out of his eyes before they finally realize, let's just stick with one fucking story? But that's my opinion. But anyway, so I really like this movie. And even though the canonicity of it was kind of off, it was still a very, very good movie. And I'm not going to get too big into detail with how the canonicity of it is off, because if you know anything about Apocalypse himself, then when you watch the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. There are certain characters that are pretty much always associated with Apocalypse that aren't in this movie. Some of his background stories kind of changed. Some of his abilities and how he takes powers from other mutants has changed. But I will say this. They did a great job of rewriting that story. If they're not going to do it the canon way, the way they did it worked out amazing. It was really a great story. Now, I would say that out of a 10, I would probably give this movie about a 7.5, maybe an 8. You know, it was a very good movie, very great movie. I enjoyed almost every single minute of it. But the movie wasn't perfect. It had its inconsistencies. It had, again, you know, where they do one X-Men movie and then they do this movie, and these two movies kind of intertwine with each other, but the story, the part of it that's intertwined, is different on both sides of the story. So, for example, like Scott Summers. You know, how many times have we seen Scott Summers finally get his abilities, and it's not the way that it happened in this movie, where we see Scott Summers in a normal school, like in X-Men Origins. We see Scott Summers in a normal school. He has his abilities already, but we see him in a normal school. He's just got normal classes on. And then Sabretooth comes and he attacks him, and, you know, he cuts the whole fucking school in half. That part of that movie and Scott Summers in this movie are two completely different stories. Which kind of drives me up a wall because, again, you know, both movies are made by the same fucking people. Just kind of don't fuck up your own story. but that's okay. Now, for any of you comic book geeks like myself that know everything that there is to know about all comics and everything that there is to know about X-Men and Apocalypse and all these other characters, I'm going to fair warn you one more time. The canonicity of this movie is off. It's not canon. The storyline doesn't actually happen how it happens in the comics. I myself, because every superhero or every comic that's turned into a live action movie is like this, so I myself have a love-hate relationship with all of them. Superman's my favorite superhero. I've got the Superman sign tattooed on my chest. I hate every single Superman movie ever created, but I love all of them at the same time. So if you're that type of person, and if you have a love-hate relationship with these type of movies, it'll be a great movie for you, I promise. Now, if you're the opposite type and you only have a hate type of relationship for these movies, do not watch the movie because you will hate it. But again, I do have to say, guys, overall, the movie was great. Now, we're going to get into some slight spoilers. I'm going to kind of tell you some of how the storyline goes so that I can better tell you what parts of the movie I liked and what parts of the movies I did not like. So when the movie starts out, it starts out with Apocalypse, and he's actually transferring his conscience into another mutant. And this is thousands and thousands of years ago in ancient Egypt. And apparently in the movie, that this is how Apocalypse has lived as long as he has, since the beginning of time or whatever. I don't know, it didn't really specify how long he's lived, it's just kind of hinted to it. But this is how Apocalypse has lived this long. He transfers his conscience into another mutant. Okay, so Apocalypse transfers his conscience into another mutant. Thus becoming that other mutant with his own mind, his own consciousness and stuff. But at the same time, he kind of absorbs their mutant abilities. So when we see this at the beginning of the movie, he's transferring his conscience into a mutant that has a healing ability, which now means once that's finished, Apocalypse will, one, have a new body, so he'll be younger or whatever, but he'll also have that healing ability. And when he transfers into another host, that healing ability will go with him, and that's why he has so many powers, and that's how he kind of absorbs mutants' abilities, which I know isn't canon of the story, the real story of Apocalypse. But again, you know, if you have a love-hate relationship with it, or you don't really care if it's canon of the story, you're going to love the movie. But I really like how they did the beginning of the movie, just telling us Apocalypse's story to a point from the get-go, and how they told it, and the story itself that they wrote for Apocalypse, I thought was a really great story. Again, if they're not going to do it the canon way, the way they did it was the next best option. Now we see multiple characters throughout the movie, obviously, but we see all of their stories, specifically their stories throughout the movie, and all of this has happened 10 years after X-Men Days of Future Past, where Magneto goes and he attacks the president. This is 10 years after that, okay? So we see their story in that 10-year time gap. Quicksilver, he realizes that Magneto's his dad, wants to find him. Magneto, he is on the run, obviously. Everybody in the world wants him. He's the most wanted man in the world. He goes out and he actually lives a normal life, gets a wife, has a daughter, gets a normal job at a factory. I believe he lives in Poland. Don't quote me on that. Where I watched it, it had, every time that they would speak in a different language that was not English, the subtitles would actually be in like Chinese or Japanese or some shit like that. So I couldn't actually hear or understand or read what they were saying. But from how the scenery looked, it looked like Poland. I'm ex-military, so I kind of know what some of different places around the world look like. And I believe it might have even said he was in Poland at one point. But again, don't quote me on that. You'll just have to watch the movie and find out if you really care. But anyway, so it shows Magneto living his normal life. He's trying to be a good person. He's trying to live like a normal human. We even see the one part that we see of Magneto using his abilities before a big tragic incident happens, which I'm not going to spoil for you because it was a great part of the movie. But up until that specific tragic event, we only see Magneto use his abilities one time. And that's to save somebody's life. So he's actually trying to be a good person. He's trying to live the way that Charles Xavier says mutants can live and how the world can live in harmony. He's trying to live like that. And it seems to be working for him for quite a bit. Now, when he saves this person's life, a lot of people see him use his abilities. They realize who he is. They turn him into the police. And then this big tragic event happens. Again, I'm not going to spoil it for you. Go watch the movie. It was great. We also see Mystique. Mystique is kind of taking the opposite path of that. You know, she's still helping people and still saving people and still doing what she needs to do to try to free mutant kind and make sure that they're safe from humans. But she doesn't go into her natural blue form. She stays in her human form. Her body, I guess you could, is how she thinks of it. How she thinks she would look as a person. I don't know. I don't know why she looks like that. Probably because the actor that plays her is good looking. I don't fucking know. But she doesn't really morph or, you know, change forms very often unless she really needs to. I mean, she does when she needs to, and she doesn't hesitate to it. But she is ashamed of how she looks, and she wants to hide herself from humankind, and at the same time, get mutants away from humankind to a safe place. And so she kind of has the opposite effect of what happened with Magneto after the events of Days of Future Past. Now we also see Charles Xavier and Beast, and they're at the school. They're doing great. You know, the school's growing, and they're happy, and that's awesome. And there's a new addition to the school, which is Jean Grey, which is really, really awesome because they showed not really Jean Grey's story from what happens in that 10-year time gap between Days of Future Past and now, but they show how she is and how people react to her at the school. And guys, let me tell you, that story, that part of the story was amazing because they show that all of the students there are terrified of Jean Grey. They hint towards, and for anybody that knows the story, anybody that's watched the third X-Men movie where she is taken over by the Phoenix Force, then you know what the Phoenix Force is. And they show that she has the Phoenix Force in her. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows how to stop it. Nobody knows how to hide it. Nobody knows anything about it. They just assume that she's the most powerful mutant on the planet. And she can't control her power. So there's one part of the movie where it's at night, everybody's asleep, and she's having a nightmare of the end of the world. And she creates like an earthquake while she's asleep, and it's shaking the whole building, it's shaking everything, and everybody's just terrified. And Professor Xavier and Beast, they know exactly where it's coming from, exactly why it's happening, and they run to her and they wake her up and they talk about it for a second. And it's really awesome to get to see that part of the movie, to get to see Jean Grey before she's a big influence, before she's a hero. You know, we get to see before they know what the Phoenix Force is and how everybody reacts to her being so powerful and not being able to control her abilities. But overall, guys, the movie was great. The only real big thing that I did not like, aside from the canonicity of everything, is the ending and how they defeated Apocalypse. It's really the only problem that I have with the movie. And the ending wasn't bad. It really wasn't. It's just that the way that they ended the movie would have been, if they'd have told me, give me a list of the 10 best ways we could end this movie, that would have been number 10. 10 being the worst, that would have been number 10. It's not a bad movie. I still think it's in probably the best 10 that they could have done. But there are so many other ways that they could have done it that would have made it so much better. But the movie ended in still a pretty decent way. Now, this is going to be a major spoiler. I'm going to tell you how the movie ends. If you do not want to see that, if you do not want that to be spoiled, fast forward about 2 minutes, and I'll make sure that I get it done in a 2-minute time frame, okay? Ready, set, go. Okay, so like I said, we all know that they know about the Phoenix Force. Well, they don't really know about the Phoenix Force, but we know that the Phoenix Force is in Jean Grey. Now, Professor Xavier and Apocalypse, they have kind of like this mental battle in a mental realm, kind of in their minds, but Apocalypse is just completely destroying Professor Xavier to the point where he's almost dying, and he's fighting all of the X-Men out in the real world while he's fighting Professor Xavier in this mental realm. But we hear Professor Xavier calling out to Jean in the real world, Jean, help me, please help, let go, let it all out, you know, don't hold back, come in here and fucking kill him, don't hold back. And she does just that, guys. She goes in there and she doesn't hold back and she lets go of the Phoenix Force while she's fighting him in the real world and the mental world now. She lets go of the Phoenix Force and it just wrecks him like it's nobody's business. Probably the easiest fight she's ever going to win. I don't really like that part of the movie. I don't really like that ending. Again, I think that they could have done it a lot better. But the way that they did it was still amazing. The fight scenes and everything was still amazing. The CGI was amazing. The kind of Easter egg to let you know that, yes, this is the Phoenix Force. This is what you thought it was. This is the Phoenix Force, and now you know. Thought that was really awesome. You know, I still think that they could have done it better. But like I said, guys, overall, out of 10, I would give this movie about a 7.5 or an 8. Definitely worth going out and watching if it's still in theaters. I don't think that it is. But if it is in a theater near you, definitely worth going out and watching. Definitely worth at least going out and renting, if not buying. This is definitely a movie that I think that I could watch more than once and multiple times, or buy it and add it to my collection. Definitely think it's a good movie. Definitely think you should go watch it. If you've seen the movie already, or if you're going to go see the movie after this review, after you watch this movie, let me know down in the comment section below your overall thoughts on the movie. If you're a big comic book geek and the canonicity of it frustrated you or didn't really frustrate you because you liked the way that they did it, let me know that down in the comment section below, guys. I would love to talk to you about that. Obviously, I know all of us big comic book geeks, we love to talk about comics. It doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter when, it doesn't matter what comic, we love to talk about comics. But yeah, guys, let me know down in the comment section below if you've watched the movie or if you're going to watch the movie, what your thoughts are. If this review helped you decide to watch the movie or if it made you decide not to watch the movie, let me know your overall thoughts in the comment section below, guys. And remember, if you're new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe for more movie reviews. We're going to do a movie review every week, probably come out every Thursday, because like I said, me and my wife watch movies every Wednesday. We usually do it late Wednesday night, so early Thursday is when I get to record. So like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you all in the next video. This is Superman Ryan, signing off. Bye.